keep others healthy and safe, and realize that that's the ultimate public service and the ultimate servant mentality at a time like this. So once you get over the, kind of the disappointment and shock that college sports and pro sports and all that are canceled, then you have to kind of get back to work with your kids. And obviously our boys are still in school, albeit remote. They're still taking classes and they're still building for their future and still doing a lot of important things. So it's kind of a time of adjustment for everybody involved. I think it takes a little getting used to, but it is what it is, right? And I know all of us are looking for things to do that are positive, that occupy our time, things to think about, talk about, and focus on. So you do what you can whenever you possibly can make an impact. And as coaches right now, it's just talking to the players via text message and phone about schoolwork, encouraging them to stay on top of things, and just let them know better days are coming. But between now and then, got to be responsible.
Well, and I think everybody appreciates that. I had one of our TPTers, our triple play texters, asked me to get you on or get a baseball coach on for a specific purpose, and I said, well, who better than the head baseball coach, obviously? So we'll get to that in a second. But on a personal note, and I did call you that night, that Thursday. I was sitting in the parking lot of the Sherman Smith Center, actually eating a food pyramid salad bar that I'd gone and got for lunch when I heard the world stop, the sports world stop. It was the announcement that the NCAA basketball tournament was being canceled and that all spring sport championships were being canceled. And as I'm sitting there, there were two people that went in my mind first. Chris Young, because I know how hard Chris had worked, and I was actually staring at the tennis center, and I know how hard he had worked to get the NCAA championships, men and women's Division I tennis championships at Stillwater, and then beyond the Greenwood Tennis Center, striking up with the lights and the grandstand, you can see O'Brate Stadium, and I thought of Josh Holliday and your program and the great day that we were getting so close to, and so on a personal note, those are two people I actually reached out to that day, and I know how hard Chris worked, and I know how hard you, Coach Holder, everybody in the athletic department, Mr. O'Brate's generosity, the generosity of so many others, and the thing, Josh, that I think about is that stadium is beautiful. It's there. I saw your address to the fans on Twitter, on social media, on the day that O'Brate Stadium was to have opened, and it will open. We will get to that point, and it'll be glorious when it does.
Yeah, that was a hard day, really hard day actually, and it was hard because the announcement of everything coming to a stop kind of got out there before anyone knew it was coming, and therefore the players found out about it in strangest of ways, which I think Twitter's a useful tool, but also a strange way to learn that your season's canceled, especially before your coaches know. So we had some pretty upset kids that got that information before we ever had a chance to prepare them for it, or for that matter, be there with them when they heard. So that was a tough day. It was a tough day for the athletes because it took their world and turned it upside down. And it was just kind of a sign of things to come as far as adjusting and understanding what's next. That was weird, but again, I don't know that there's any perfect way to handle tough situations. When you talk about Chris and those national championships, I mean, when you think about where Cowboy and Cowgirl tennis was in terms of the great teams and individuals and coaches that came through here, but did so with very little, and now what they have and what he's worked so hard with the administration and Coach Udwadia to build, it's an unbelievable facility and set of programs that we have here on this campus. And to think that his effort and that of the people that worked with him to host national championships and put together just an amazing show for all the athletes that were headed to Stillwater, that would have brought tremendous attention to Oklahoma State, to Stillwater, and would have put our campus and community in such an awesome position to just enjoy spring sports, the sport of tennis, and really for the nation to realize what a special setup we have here. So you're sad for him and his kids. If I know Chris Young and the tennis program, they will be back in terms of getting the national championship here at some point. So Too bad that's delayed. We were looking forward to our two facilities kind of being companions in this whole deal and really showing people that Oklahoma State's special. For us, I mean, to say we're disappointed would maybe be the understatement of all time, but we do understand. And as you mentioned, I think on opening night we would have seen a crowd and an atmosphere never captured before on this campus, to be honest with you, because we would have been splitting at the seams in terms of capacity with folks that had purchased tickets. We would have had I think, in a once-in-a-lifetime environment atmosphere with all that had been put into getting George Bush here, President George Bush, to come in and throw the first pitch and open the stadium with Mr. O'Brate. And so I think it would have been a pretty glorious night. I actually pulled my car into the parking lot right about the time first pitch would have been thrown, and just kind of thought to myself, I think people would be having a lot of fun right now. It ended up being kind of a cool, clear night and perfect for baseball. So you have those thoughts for sure, Robert. And there's no doubt everybody's human, and so you have those things go through your mind. But then when you do catch wind of reality, you realize, okay, may not be hitting Stillwater just yet, or hopefully at all to the degree it's hitting other places. But there's some folks really struggling. And in particular, New York, we have a former player, Bryce Carter, who was here just last year on our team, who lives in New York City and is working there. And he sent some pictures and a note to us to just say, hey, I'm not sure if you understand just how serious this really is. So, it wakes you up to the world being bigger than the little bubble you live in. But yeah, there was some serious work that had been put in by a lot of people for that opening night, and that time will come. Just when, I don't know, but that time is going to come again, and we'll recreate that same excitement.
All right, here's the note I got from the TPT or TPT 761. Robert, I have two boys that play competitive baseball in the Houston area. They are also sidelined due to the Wu-flu pandemic. Any thoughts of getting baseball players or coaches on to talk about staying in shape, arm care for pitchers, focus drills that they can do during this time period? Thanks, Houston Pete. You're in a unique situation in that you're a baseball coach, head coach at the Division I college level, and I know you've got youngins at home that are wanting to get out there and do some things. So what's your advice for Houston Pete? And I think his sons are like, junior high level travel baseball type kids. So they're not just they play a lot of baseball. What's your advice to kids right now that they can do and try and stay as sharp as possible with a sport they love?
Sure. Well, in reading all the literature about what's safe and encouraged and what's discouraged, I'd say at this time you can always get outside and run. There's no lack of pavement or roads to go run. Running's still one of the most basic athletic movements that we have that, one, keeps us in great shape, keeps our bodies lengthened out to where we feel active and we feel somewhat mentally competitive. You derive some natural highs from running that will keep you in good spirits at a time when maybe you're locked inside a lot. So that's one thing. Two, I think playing catch with a partner, especially a little brother or a dad who you're in the same household with and not drifting outside of your recommendations, you can play catch together in a driveway or down a street or in a backyard. I don't think there's anything from a health perspective that would deem that not safe. And you can do that at a distance and in a way where your arm does stay in shape, maybe not necessarily pitching shape, but certainly in shape. As far as other things to do to stay sharp, I mean, I would say that for many, many, many years, baseball players trained and developed and evolved independent of all the modern technology and some of the high profile training opportunities. So whether it be push-ups or sit-ups, there's so many different things that are out there now showing people how to work out with just body weight movements and things like that. I'd seek those things out. I think those are safe and can be done in a driveway or garage or a family room or whatever. Hitting off a tee, hitting wiffle balls, hitting tennis balls, hitting things into the backyard fence. Those things are all healthy, encouraged. If you break a panel on a fence, that can always be fixed, or hit into a net, or hang a blanket off of a couple of corners of a fence. You can do just about anything to just keep your baseball movements active. I wouldn't stress a whole lot over it. I think the vast majority of people are in the same boat, and I think when they comes time again to resume baseball, everyone will understand that kids need a little time to kind of get back to game speed. Me and my son hit wiffle balls into a net each night. We field grounders on the driveway, just bouncing them and work on the fundamentals of the game and the technique. And he shoots baskets a lot, which I think is also keeps your hand-eye coordination, your timing, your touch, all those things that go into being an athlete sharp. So I think you do the best you can. I don't think you fret about it. I think you just have fun with it. And I think you just try to embrace the simplicity of baseball. Play catch, swing a bat, catch a ball. I think the time will come to speed the body back up, and hopefully everybody involved in amateur baseball, youth baseball, when we do get the clearance to go back to somewhat of a normal lifestyle, will be responsible and not being crazy with how many games, how many pitches, and all those things we ask kids to throw. I think that's where the adults will have to show some ability to take all this in. But that would be my best advice at this time. I used to swing a bat in the garage and imitate my favorite players and look in a mirror and swing a bat. I mean, I can think of all kinds of things I did on my own that were part of my time with the game that I love.
Yeah, and I think Houston Pete's lucky. He says he has two boys, so you got two boys. They can play catch. If since they're in the same family and they're in the same quarantine isolation type together, soft toss, like you said, is fantastic into a blanket or a net or whatever. And so with two, you can do a lot of baseball with two. You can't do take full infield or BP necessarily, but two can still do a lot of baseball.
No doubt. Yeah, I think some of the best moments are between father, son, or brothers and dad. And, yeah, there's no doubt. But I think one of the things we just have to remind our kids and certainly I even tell our own players right now off on their own, just stay in shape. The time to catch back up on baseball will present itself. And main thing right now, though, is for people to be respectful of the suggestions that are made about how to slow the spread of this virus so that a chance to get through this with the most limited number of real tragedies and casualties as possible, and then normal life will start back up after. So, yeah, I think just do what you can, follow the rules, and be smart.
Yeah, the other question that I really wanted to get with you, and this it kind of hit a new level last night when late last night I saw the story, and the first one I saw actually came down from a station in Lansing, Michigan. The NCAA will vote Monday to determine whether spring or winter athletes will receive another year of eligibility. They had a quote in there from Jake Boss, the baseball coach at Michigan State. His quote, there have been a lot of options kind of tossed around, everything from canceling everything and not doing anything at all to maybe playing in the fall with a fall season, or maybe everybody giving giving everybody their eligibility back for the spring. How much have you talked to other coaches, and how much are you aware of what the NCAA is in the motion of possibly doing for your athletes?
Well, I've certainly talked to other coaches and been involved in some phone calls with Coaches Association and our conference. So I think, Robert, the most probably realistic and sensible thing will be for the NCAA to ultimately award the spring sport athletes this year of eligibility back, whether they're seniors or underclassmen. I do believe that will happen, although there is some objection to that from certain people for fear that it creates unforeseen roster issues and costs. I'm sure that's a potential. Issue, but I think the right thing is to give these athletes this year back. I hope that's what they'll do. That would be my vote, 100%. I think there's a 0% chance of reworking the 2020 baseball season. I think our season has come and it's gone. I think what we all should hope for is that by the start of the fall semester, that our universities are back up at full speed, that this health crisis has come and it's gone to some degree, and that college football will restart itself on schedule so that our school year and our organizations, our departments, our budgets, and everybody involved in college athletics can get back to some form of a plan. I don't think the sport of baseball or our season ranks very highly in the order of things right now that are most pressing. In fact, I know they don't. So I would say it'd be my hope in an ideal world that we get through this, that the athletes regain some form of normalcy during the summer. That come, I believe it's August 17th next year, our universities are back up to normal. I think that would be good for everybody, and hopefully, from a health perspective, that will create the amount of time necessary to get on the other side. But anything other than that, Robert, I think at this point is just people with some good thoughts and some good intentions and too much time on their hands. I don't think those things are truly under consideration when it comes to the NCAA. They've got, I think, more pressing issues they're addressing.
Well, and I'm going back to what you said earlier with regards to what you do right now as far as getting out, and that is obeying all the restrictions, all the suggestions that are being made by the medical people, because if you don't, you just more than likely risk the extension of how long we're going to go without getting back to some of the normal things. And from a from a university, from an athletic perspective, I've heard this from a lot of administrators. If something happens and football doesn't get in because it is a big financial engine, now you're talking about, like you said, athletic departments, budgets, all kinds of things being in disarray, and some major reorganization if people lose the football season. So, everybody stay at home, do what you can do so we can maybe get back to this in time to have somewhat of a normal school year next year, right?
I think so. I think obviously your first thought in all this going on is the health and well-being, especially of our elderly, since that's something that's been talked about so frequently,
Sure.
knowing that we got to take care of each other, family and older family members, obviously the small business community and the people that have worked so hard to build up successful businesses that are really kind of the pulse and heartbeat of what goes on day to day, especially in a college town like Stillwater and so many college towns, is to hope we can get back up and keep all those businesses and make our community what it is, where people are giving and sharing and helping one another across both college and high school sports, constantly supporting one another. I mean, this engine of sport doesn't work without the constant support of so many people that sponsor and buy tickets and come to games and go out of their way to come to events and moments in time that make universities special. So we got to get through all this for that group of our family. And then from that standpoint, hope to give the athletes and the university and the students on this campus the education and experience that everybody is so fond of. And right now, kids are finishing college online, and for the life of me, I can't imagine what that's like, but they're actually doing it. So, yeah, I think to focus on the future, good thoughts about how to get there, understand some of the adjustments that might have to occur. But at the same time, as I told my players and tell anybody that I have these conversations with, I think people need to be mature and be perspective-driven and not sit around and complain about how bored they are or feel sorry for themselves, because this is pretty serious stuff, and you don't want to get on the other side of that. And I think that's the main thing that you learn is we take for granted all those simple pleasures. As I texted the team yesterday, we would have been on a 7-hour bus ride today to Austin, Texas, and we would have gotten to get off the bus and practice and all those carry the bags in and all the things that from time to time people complain about doing. We sure would look forward to doing those if we had things back to normal. So it is just definitely part of the history books that we're living through, and we'll just get on the other side of it. Other than that, I sure hope that, like you said, we get through the summer and the norm for everybody involved is back.
Two quick things. One, and this is vital in your business as far as roster organization and player, um, stability. What are you hearing on baseball, Major League Baseball, and an amateur draft? Because that's up in the air.
I believe there will be a draft. I believe it'll be lesser in round and probably focused more primarily on the college players that had been seen in these 5 weeks that we played, and really the very, very top of the mountain of high school players, the very cream of the crop, where those kids had been seen so frequently leading up to this point that the scouts are clear in their evaluation of them. I do not believe it will go probably beyond 10, 15, or 20 rounds, and there could be less dollars invested in the draft because major league organizations, I think, are fearful of lost revenues because of the way this is playing out. So, yes, I do think a draft happens. I do think it goes off. I think between now and then, we'll all be sitting here trying to understand it and figure out how it affects us. And that's really all you can do. As you know right now, there's so much speculation, but there's just no answers. And hopefully, slowly but surely, these answers will start to land, and we can then, as coaches, see how that impacts our roster.
And then the other thing, and I immediately, last week, I went into the search mode of trying to look for a 2021 future Oklahoma State baseball schedule. And you're a sport that kind of, schedules somewhat in advance sometimes, but also season to season. And I was looking just to see who might be the first opponent in the first game at O'Brate Stadium. I don't know if they'd organize it to where Ali P would get a few more games before you get the right opponent. But who do you have on the books, and how could you see that happening?
Yeah, the scheduling's done pretty far in advance in the sport of baseball. I think we're scheduled out through 2023 at this point, or at least 2022. It's a great question. I don't have the answer off the top of my head. I want to say our first weekend series in 2021 is Illinois State at the end of February. We're working internally with Coach Holder to come up with maybe an idea where we could try to launch an O'Brate Stadium opening this coming fall with the fall scrimmages that we're permitted to have.
That'd be great.
It would be our preference to try to tap into that quality weather that time of year, as well as other events on campus that we hope are back on schedule, and really try to get in there sooner than later. We need to transition over and kind of start living in that new house. And we're thinking of all the things we can and taking all things into consideration. But hopefully when some of the real pressing issues here are taken care of, we can shift focus and come up with a great plan to move in there.
If I get a vote, I'd like to vote for you. Call your former boss at Vandy and have the Commodores over for a little fun. That'd be fun.
Everything's on the table. We'll exhaust all possibilities. I assure you that.
Hey, Josh, I appreciate the time. Best to you and your family. I know your family well, and I hope everything's going fine. I saw a deal. I think Dave Hunziker retweeted it. Picture of you and your dad and Matt and how much you guys have meant to baseball in the Stillwater area. And I tweeted a reply in there that said, you really need to get mom in there too, because she's played a major role in baseball in this town. But I hope everybody, and Matt and his family, everybody's doing okay.
We're all doing well. Thanks for asking. And yeah, there's no doubt there'd be no baseball lifestyle without an amazing mom and wife to allow that to happen. So we're all doing well. Same to all our fans listening. I hope everybody's good, and really miss connecting and seeing people at the ballpark and sharing the joy of, just all that we had to look forward to. So hopefully, that energy will be stored up and be ready to be unleashed once they say go again.
Yeah, I'm a big Kathy Holliday fan, so along with everybody else in the family. So, hey, I appreciate your time.
You bet. Thanks for having me on.
All right, Josh Holliday,